Walt Disney's Comics and Stories. The Robber Kitten. A little kitten riding a broomstick horse dashed through the woods, singing in his small, shrill voice. Beware, beware, a robber bold am I, your gold I'll take, so cringe and shake, all men I do defy. The little kitten wore a jaunty hat with a gay scarlet plume which waved in the breeze as he galloped along the path. On his feet were high leather boots. In the crimson sash, which he had tied around his waist, were thrust two toy guns and a long wooden sword. On and on he ran, guiding his broomstick horse deeper and deeper into the green woods, pretending that he was a fearless, daring highwayman astride a high, prancing steed. A robber's life is the life for me, bold and brave and free I'll be. I'll rob the rich and give to the poor, as Robin Hood did in the days of yore, he sang in his gay little voice, ringing in the quiet air and startling the birds in the thick green branches above his head. Suddenly there was a rustling in the sundered bush beside the path. The frightened little kitten forgot that he was a brave, bold robber. He pulled his broomstick horse to a stop and quickly dropped it to the ground. Who's there? He called in a quavering voice, peering anxiously about him. He could feel his heart beating fast. Out from the bushes stepped the most terrifying creature the little kitten had ever seen. Huge yellow teeth jutted from his ugly, scowling face. On his face he wore a pointed cap, decorated with a black tipped feather. His clothes were torn and patched and dirty. A sharp, jagged edged knife and a powder blackened were thrust into his belt. I'm Dirty Bill, the robber dog, the creature growled in a hoarse voice. Who are you? The little kitten shivered in his high boots as he stared at the fierce and wicked Dirty Bill. Then he suddenly remembered that he, too, was a brave and fearless robber, with a mighty sword and two trusty guns thrust into his sash. He straightened his small shoulders, took a deep breath, and said in his loudest, bravest voice, I am fearless Frank the Robber Cat. Men shake with terror when I appear. Little children run screaming into their houses when they hear my name. Fearless Frank the Robber Cat, the robber dog exclaimed, looking in amazement at the little kitten. Quickly, the kitten drew his wooden sword and brandished it threateningly in the air. With this sword, I have fought and won 20 duels in the last 12 months, the little kitten cried, waving his sword before the staring eyes of the robber dog. My trusty blade conquers all foes. Only last week I vanished the mighty Captain Cornelius Cat, the greatest swordsman of all time. You defeated the great Captain Cornelius Cat, the robber dog exclaimed, backing away from the waving sword of the bold kitten. Not the great Captain Cornelius Cat. Yes, the little kitten answered, swaggering up and down the path before the bulging eyes of the astonished robber dog. And Captain Cornelius Cat is only one of the many swordsmen who have fallen under my blade. Neither cat nor dog, be he big or small, can face my sword and live. With a flourish, the little kitten thrust his wooden sword into his sash and drew forth his two toy guns, with their cork bullets in their muzzles. My faithful guns serve me as well as does my sword, the kitten boasted, moving a few steps toward the amazed robber dog. No one can deny that I am the best m- marksman in the land. No dog or cat can beat me to the draw. All men cringe and shiver when I appear. Single-handed I robbed Tom Tabby's tavern of all its gold and silver. With only my guns as companions, I burst through the front door and held 50 men at bay while I robbed them of their valuables and looted the safe. Foolhardy Tom Tabby dared to oppose me. With my left hand, I shot his gun from his fingers and escaped without a scratch. You looted Tom Tabby's tavern and escaped without a scratch? The robber dog growled admiringly. Without a scratch, the kitten repeated with boasting bluster. Half a hundred men pursued me into the woods, but my horse is faster than any steed in the country. I escaped with the gold and booty, leaving my pursuers wounded on the ground behind me. The robber dog gasped with astonished admiration. The little kitten, encouraged by Dirty Bill's belief in his stories of imagined braveries and daring deeds, talked on and on. He strode up and down the path, telling story after story of fancied robberies and duels and fearless cats. Only 2 days ago, I entered the castle of Lord Calvert Collie and robbed him of his gold and jewels, the kitten said finally. It was a dark and stormy night. I tied my horse to a sapling outside the castle walls and climbed from the saddle to the top of the high wall. Then I leaped down into the garden and crept noisily toward the castle, avoiding the guards. I scaled the walls using the ivy vines as a ladder and slipped through a window. Where do you suppose I found myself? In Lord Collie's bedroom. The little kitten stopped for a moment and looked at Dirty Bill. The fierce bandit waited breathlessly for the rest of the story. He wakened, but before he could utter a sound, I covered him with my guns and forced him to lead me to the hiding place of his treasures, the little kitten continued. I filled 2 bags with gold and jewels, slung them across my shoulders, bound Lord Collie in his bed, and climbed down the ivy. But bad luck was with me. As I neared the ground, the ivy vine broke, and I fell with a loud thud and jangling of golden coins. Instantly, the castle blazed with lights, and 100 strong guards rushed into the garden. I was surrounded, with my back against the wall. Was I afraid? Not I. I had been in far more perilous spots before. I drew my guns and faced the, the onrush. 6 captains of the guard dashed toward me with drawn guns and swords. 6 times I fired, and they fell to the ground. Stand back if you value your lives. I am fearless Frank the robber kitten. Woe be unto the first one who moves, I shouted, and the guards stopped their rush. They stood, frozen with fear. Gee, the robber dog breathed. Only one foolish fellow dared to move. He was merely a blur in the rain and the darkness. His gun blazed, the bullets striking the stone wall above my head. Instantly, I fired toward the blaze of his gun. My bullet found its mark, and he fell to the ground, howling with pain. Then, covering the cowering, trembling guards with my guns, I made my way to the garden wall, vaulted to the top, and dropped into the saddle of my waiting horse. I sped away toward my hiding place in the woods, carrying Lord Collie's treasure. The little kitten paused, waiting for an admiring exclamation from the fierce robber dog. For a moment, Dirty Bill stood still, staring down at the little kitten. Then suddenly the huge robber dog pulled his jagged knife from his belt and sprang toward the kitten. Give me the gold you stole. Lead me to your hiding place. I'll have your money or your life, the robber dog cried, his cruel eyes blazing and one large paw grasping the kitten's shoulder. The terrified kitten screamed with fright, struggling in the clutches of the wicked dog. Desperately he fought, trying to free himself from Dirty Bill's grasp. At last the kitten managed to wriggle free and, yelling with fear, he fled through the woods. Dirty Bill leaped after him, but the little kitten could run faster than the clumsy robber dog, and fright gave speed to his small flying legs. On and on he ran. It seemed as though he would never reach home. His little legs ached, and his heart pounded fast. Finally, gasping for breath, he reached the safety of his own little home, leaving the robber dog far behind in the woods. Exhausted, the little kitten sank into a chair. He flung his plumed hat on the floor beside him. He pulled his wooden sword from his sash, broke it into two pieces, and flung them down beside the hat. In his wild flight, he had lost one of his toy guns. The other he pulled out and dropped on the floor at his feet. I'll never pretend to be a bold, bad robber again, he promised himself. Never again will I tell lies about my duels and shootings and daring deeds. A little kitten I am, and a little kitten I will be from now on. Then the little kitten felt better, so he curled up and went to sleep.